Hello, welcome to another episode of EPMS Tech Talk. I'm Chris Costa.
And I'm Joanne LaFlamme.
So Joanne, what do you think is a good topic for tonight?
Well, I thought maybe we could talk about how EPMS decides what address to print on the AR invoice.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
I get that question a lot too. Maybe before we go to the screen, just real quick, the basic hierarchy really is it's going to first look to see if you have a manual override directly on the invoice.
Okay.
Of course, that's going to take precedence. So anything you just type physically right on the invoice as a bill to button, you'll be able to just physically override any address right then and there.
Okay.
If there's nothing there, it would look at the bill to address set up on the customer. So if you have, one address that you want to direct the invoice to all the time for this customer, you can go to the bill to tab, put in the address information there, and it will always go there.
Okay.
If nothing there, you could use contacts. So you could set up billing contacts if you need to direct it, sometimes to X and sometimes to Y.
Okay.
Set up multiple billing contacts. You'll be able to choose where you want to send the invoice. And then lastly, if there's nothing in any of those places, it'll always fall back to the sold to, main address.
Okay, great. Can we take a look at Enterprise?
Sure, absolutely. I actually have an invoice open, so I'm going to open up to accounts receivable. Go to the batch. I have an invoice here. If I open up the invoice, so there's a couple things we can look at, and I'm going to edit the customer from within here. I mentioned that you've got a bill to tab on the customer. Now, if the billing information is the same as the main location sold to address, you don't have to have anything on the bill to address because the system will automatically fall back to the sold to address.
Okay.
So you only need to put something in the bill to if it is slightly different
Okay.
than the main address. In this case, I made it a little bit different. I've got my sold to address, Middleborough, Abbey Lane, bill to address, slightly different. Okay, attention to Craig. While we're in here, I'll also mention that I've set up you and myself as contacts. One thing to note on the contact screen is the only way it's going to show up on the invoice is if it's flagged as a billing contact.
Okay.
I mean, you could have 100 contacts in here. You may only want a few of them eligible to be billing contacts.
Okay.
So you can check that box, and that'll flag them as a billing contact.
Great. Okay.
Okay. Another thing to note is because the bill to information is sooner, if that's the right phrase to use, in the hierarchy than the contact. If you do want to use the contacts, you want to make sure the bill to box is blank. Okay, so you would leave this information completely blank if you wanted to use contacts. So only have the bill to information filled out if you want that invoice to go to that spot all the time.
Okay.
If you want to be able to pick and choose between different contacts, leave the bill to information completely blank, and then you'll just have the person on the invoice select which contact they wanted.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. So just to look at it, so right now, because I have something in the bill to, and we saw that it was, EPMS with a Falmouth address, okay, that's coming in with our bill to information, attention to Craig. Now I mentioned that you could, if I wanted to, I could click the bill to box here and type in on the fly an address that I want to use as an override. So I could come in here and put something in there and it will use that all the time.
Okay.
Okay. Including, you'll notice that the contact is in here. So if you wanted to pick a contact or another, this is where you would pull that in. But again, we would want to remove what's on that bill to section, and then we could pick our contact.
So if I pick a contact here, but I have something in the bill to, it's still going to use the bill to.
Still going to use the bill to.
Okay.
So we can see how that will work. So if I can quickly, right from here, I can still edit the customer. And let me just back all this stuff out. Okay. Okay, so now my bill to section is blank. So I can go to the manual override spot here and I can choose to send this invoice to, you, for example. And that's all that's going to show up is just the contact name here. It's not going to automatically fill all the other information. It just has to have that contact name in there, and then it will link out and go grab the address.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay. Reprint the invoice. And now it pulls in your specific address. And of course, if I picked myself, it would, whoops, wrong button. If I picked myself in here instead, it would pick the alternate address. So you can have as many, billing contacts as you want set up there to direct the invoice in any number of different ways.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Now, what if I wanted to send the invoice to maybe another office, but not necessarily to a particular contact?
Yep, you could still use the, you could still utilize the billing contact for that.
Okay.
Maybe you've got a satellite office, but you're right, you don't, maybe in all cases, you don't necessarily dictate an attention or a contact name. You just want to send it to a building, and maybe today, this invoice, you're going to send it to another building. You can still use the billing contact just to indicate the satellite office and do the exact same thing. Just kind of pick the contact and it'll go to the different address.
Okay, great.
Have any more questions?
No, that was great. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thanks. Well, thank you. That was another episode of EPMS Tech Talk. I'm Chris Costa.
And I'm Joanne LaFlamme.
Please look forward for more to come.